Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan, and welcome to the latest episode of our entertainment show. As you know, a feature of our entertainment show every week is we preview upcoming TV series or movies that are debuting here in Ireland this month. And obviously, it's that time of the year; it's scare season all over again. People are getting out their pumpkins, their trick or treats, going down to their shops and getting the brooms and the witch sticks and one thing that sort of comes out every year anyway, no matter what it is there will always be a horror movie on TV, and 99 times out of 100, most of those horror movies will have a character called Mike Myers in it. And this is no different this year again, but unfortunately, it seems that this might be the final time that we might be mentioning the dreaded name of Michael Myers. Because this movie is it's titled Halloween Ends, but as we know, Halloween will go on. But the movie Halloween Ends, and the story of Laurie Stradle and Mike Myers is going to come to a full blown conclusion. And we're delighted to be joined by one of the stars of the movie now, Andi Matichak. Uh, I hope I got that spot
That
on.
was perfect.
Andi, you play Allison in it. You were in the previous movie as well, Halloween Kills in 2021. Synonymous with the sort of franchise now, obviously recurring character coming back to play that role, obviously alongside legendary Jamie Lee Curtis, who's been there from day one. Will Patton is there as well, who plays Frank, the character. Uh, wow, what can I say? Halloween Ends. I suppose you probably remember yourself as being a little teenager or a teenage girl, or where mommy and daddy said, no, don't watch those horror movies. You'll start to get nightmares. Don't see Freddy Krueger or Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees.
Definitely. I mean, horror movies, my parents didn't really have to say much. I was so scared all the time of all of them that I stayed away enough on my own. But obviously when you're young, I think the first time I saw Halloween, 1978, was at a friend's house in their basement, and it was one of those situations where, you're not supposed to be watching it, and I don't think I took another
We all did
babysitting
it.
gig after that.
Yeah, and I suppose it's a sort of what I say, it's a secret sort of taste, horror sort of movies, in terms of it always captures your imagination what it would be like, and there's always that sort of will I or sort of won't I. But once you watch the first one, you're sort of intrigued and sort of hooked. And was that the same case for you as well? In terms of, did you get that sort of horror sort of bug after, daring I say, watching the first one, or just think, oh no, stay away from that?
I really got the bug for horror once I booked Halloween 2018, and I was really exposed to the community around it, and the culture within the horror world, and the horror community there. I mean, horror films, some of the most original content right now that's coming out is in the horror space, and there's so many subgenres within the genre of horror. So there really is something for everybody, and it's been really fun kind of delving more into it in recent years.
And Andy, I know as actresses, you're trained, and obviously it's a profession, it's art to to portray all sorts of emotions, and obviously from love to heartache to action to sort of suspense. But sheer horror and that sheer feeling of being scared out of your mind as an actress, is that probably the most hardest sort of thing because to portray? Because because obviously you're there, you aren't technically scared, you probably what's in front of you, you could probably take it off with your sort of hand. It's probably nothing more than a plastic sort of stuff, to try and portray those emotions, and you can't actually see yourself while you're sort of doing is that very hard? I suppose actresses and actors can play love scenes, they can play death scenes, but the sheer sense of projecting that real sense of I'm terrified out of my wits here, is that very hard? Is that very challenging?
It's definitely, I mean, what we do, it's part of the fun of it is getting put in all these different crazy kind of scenarios, and getting to cathartically work your way through it. One of the things that makes my job much easier on these three films was the fact that I was able to work with Christopher Nelson, who did all of the special effects for all three of our films. And the way he works so much of what you see is done practically. I figured so much would be done in post when I initially started working on these. I figured, we'd be kind of acting to the tennis ball a little bit, so to speak. And it really was never that way. Almost every single effects that we did was practically done on the day, and it looks incredibly realistic. And then it's just enhanced in post. So what you're seeing a lot of the times you're squirming when you're actually looking at the thing because it's so kind of well done and gross, for lack of a better word, when you watch someone's brain get stomped in.
Yeah, and I suppose, Andy, in terms of makeup and wardrobe and costume design, I know it's such an important part of the acting and the entertainment sort of industry, but especially in horror movies, when you sort of appreciate the arts and the talents of these costume designers to obviously to portray those horrific graphic sort of scenes on camera, but obviously how they do it to such a fine art in terms of and almost find sort of there's almost an element of fun in it, dare I say, not for the viewer that's watching it, but when you're sort of playing that out. But do you sort of revel or admire what they can do in terms of
Of
that
course,
sort of?
it's hard not to. It's hard not to revel and admire what they do across the board. I mean, it's such a collaborative art form, and especially with something like set dressing. And if you have a death, you have, if it touches the hair, someone on hair is doing the blood design in the hair. If it's on the face or the skin, it's going to be makeup. If it's on the clothing, it's wardrobe. I mean, there are so many people that go into making what you see, and it is such an artistry, and getting to even see the different gashes that our makeup artist designs, as well as the things like I mentioned that Chris Nelson does. It takes artistry to a different level, and it definitely gives you way more appreciation and understanding seeing it up close and realizing that what they're creating is pretty realistic and stands out to be so on the day of filming, and it's not done after the fact with CGI or something like that.
And I know, Andy, most of the film was filmed in Georgia and Utah. And I know as actresses, most of your industry is contained maybe to the Los Angeles sort of area, New York area, maybe Vancouver sort of. But getting out to go out to places like Georgia and Utah and Salt Lake City to shoot a horror movie, getting away from the confines, maybe the hustle bustle of lots and studios in Los Angeles and California. Was that a real sort of treat as well in terms of shooting that movie that dare I say, there's a bit of peace and tranquility being sort of locked away as a cast and crew? Now, dare I say, Salt Lake City is not a small place indeed, but from the hustle and bustle of shooting and directing movies and the cutthroat what is Warner Studio lots in Los Angeles.
We shot the first film in Charleston, South Carolina, the second film in Wilmington, North Carolina, and the third film in Savannah, Georgia. So we were kind of all around the southern, the southeastern part of the country, and they were all really small towns, and it boded well for the fact that we were supposed to be creating a small town in the Midwest, Haddonfield. And it definitely makes for a very intimate filming environment. I absolutely loved it, getting to be all in one location all together. Everybody's a transplant once you're there and once you're making them, so it really feels like summer camp. And we were fortunate enough to make the each film with essentially the same crew. A lot of the cast was obviously rotating for obvious reasons, given the nature of what we were making, but it was the same crew, so it really was such a special experience. And getting to do one in a different place even made it more interesting and exciting.
Mm. And obviously, the movie can't be in contention without Jamie Lee Curtis, because her connection with Michael Myers is what the sort of movie is about. I suppose Jamie was there in terms of that horror industry sort of from day one has become a sort of a cult, sort of iconic sort of figure. In terms of working with her, in terms of learning from her on set, in terms of the horror industry, did you sort of dare I say, sponge in everything that Jamie Lee Curtis could offer you in terms of horror movies as well? Because in terms of her longevity in the terms of the horror industry, it has to be admired to achieve that so much of the Mike Myers characters is so situated on her existence as well. Without her, technically, there couldn't be Mike Myers,
She is iconic across so many genres. And this definitely, this was a big start of her career, and she has come back to it time and time again. So getting to work with her in this space, especially in something that has been home to her for so long, was really special. And she works very much as she leads by example. And all you want to do when you're around her is just soak in absolutely everything about her for your own learning sake, and also so you can experience it, because she's a force to be reckoned with. And she's incredibly generous and kind, and works really hard, and lifts you up and challenges you, and she kind of is so many things all at once. And I've learned a tremendous amount of things from her over the last 5 years, and I'm lucky enough at this point I can call her a friend.
Yeah, and Andy, in terms of the movie itself, it goes down a sort of a different twist, as we know. It's out in the movies, all cinemas all across Ireland at the moment, and it goes down the angle of maybe a boy who accidentally commits a murder in terms of baby sort of sitting, and he sort of goes down, say, a wrong sort of trajectory that leads to everything cropping up again in this sort of small town. I suppose that sort of twist or unique twist to the storyline to bring in this sort of extra element. I suppose there has to be within every sort of horror movie a sort of an underlying plot. It just can't be Mike Myers from Act 1, Scene 1 to Act 20, Scene 20 wrap. There has to be some other plot that sort of leads into it. And would you think it was a unique sort of twist that was something different from previous adaptations of the horror sequence?
Definitely. We've seen now films that really center on Michael Myers countless times, and getting to be a part of something that really was fresh and original and a different take, and a new way into the story was really inspiring and special and fun to be a part of. And this for me was, the second I read it, I called David Gordon Green, our director and our writer, and I was like, this is your movie. Like, this is the David Gordon Green stamp on the franchise. And I was just so excited to be a part of the vehicle to tell it.
And Alison, how did you want to sort of change your character in this movie? How did you want to sort of mix her up in terms of her identity? That, not to say that she was just it was just jumping from one movie to the next. Did you want to? How did you feel that you needed to go maybe in different sort of angles to give her a new sense of life, dare I say? It's a strange word in terms of horror movie, but a sense of life. But I suppose that's what you need to do in terms of making her stand out, in terms of making her stand out, if it was only a once alone sort of a movie, dare I say.
The thing that was interesting to play with was the fact, one of the things that was interesting to play with is the fact that there was a 4 year time jump from Halloween 2018 and subsequently Halloween Ends. 4 years later, we cut to where we find her in Halloween Ends. I'm sorry, Halloween Kills in 2018, and where we find her in Halloween Ends. And there was a lot of time and attention to detail that went into charting the trajectory of how she goes from the girl on the porch at the end of Halloween Kills to where we find her in 2022. And it was a lot of conversation with David. It was a lot of internal introspective work and journaling, and then also creating relationships and working with Jamie Lee Curtis on Laurie and Allison's relationship, working with Rowan Campbell on Corey and Allison's relationship. And we were, one of the benefits, I guess, of having so much time in between filming was we were allowed a good amount of time to really do that, and do that properly, and take our time with it. So it was a lot of fun work that we were able to do that we weren't really able to do between the first and second film, given they take place on the same night. So there's not much to fill in the gaps of.
Yeah. And Andy, sort of coming on now to the last two questions. And Andy, I suppose you're now sort of very much associated with the Halloween sort of franchise, the Michael Myers franchise, now being involved in the last few movies. And obviously the other two big iconic movies around that sort of genre around Halloween is Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger. In terms of maybe a year or two down the line, if an opportunity came about, if you get involved in one of those sort of franchise, would that be sort of weird for you being so involved in Halloween that you could sort of jump across to those sort of two franchise, or do you feel that because you're associated with Mike Myers and the Halloween ends that to go on and it would you couldn't feel your way to be associated with other sort of
I personally think it would be weird, but maybe other people wouldn't. So we just have to wait and see, I guess.
Yeah, and I suppose Andi Matichak, for the final 30 seconds now, I might turn it over to you, and you might enlighten all our listeners here in Ireland why they should go out on the Friday nights, even the Thursday or Wednesday night. It's a bit of a hurricane season here at the moment, so we do urge people that if they're going out, please drive safely, please take your time, and please go slowly. But for people that do make the trek out to the cinemas this weekend, to watch Halloween Ends, Andi Matichak and Alison herself, what's in store for them?
I think that the best way to go into this movie is open-minded and ready to just be taken on a ride, and try not to be precious about it. You're going to get the epic final conclusion between Laurie and Michael, and it's going to be a hell of a ride getting there. And I'm just so excited for people to see it if you haven't already, and 'tis the season, because it really is the perfect way to celebrate the spooky season.
On that note, Andi Matichak, an absolute pleasure for me, Jim Conlan, speaking to you today on air. Pleasure speaking to you. We wish you all the success. Obviously, a pioneer in terms of the horror industry, in terms of Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends, and your sort of run in the sort of franchise. Hopefully, there's many more to come. But for the moment, Andi, take care, stay blessed, and do visit our shores in Ireland sometime in the near future.
Definitely. It's on the list. It's on the list.
It's on the list. We look
Thank
forward
you
to
so
seeing you,
much.
Andi.
Thank you for having
Take
me.
care.
It was such a pleasure talking with you.
Take care, Andi. Take care.
Bye.